Gratitude is a fine feeling, and people always approve of it, it seems. And unless they're feeling really snarky. And paranoia doesn't approve of gratitude and thinks it's being manipulated. But most of the time, we approve of gratitude. There's this thing that spreads through our chests. I was trying to think of whether I believe that gratitude is a practice, or is it something that if you're really following the way, it just comes in and hits you over the head or enters your heart and takes you over, or something like that, So it's more like an awakening experience, gratitude, awakening to how things really are, And so that, but then there are people who devote their whole lives to making it a practice, loving kindness or gratitude or something like that. When you feel gratitude, in that view, it's kind of sword that cuts through all your delusions, So I don't know what I think about that, but the great story about, there's a famous story about the nature of gratitude and gratitude as that kind of sword, as a practice, really, I suppose, which bears retelling, or at least to me bears retelling. And so there was this teacher who was kind of famous, and she was famously, free, and she would teach all sorts of idiots who came and things like that. So she didn't put a lot of requirements on her teaching, but you absolutely had to do what she asked you to do if you wanted to be her student. And so this youngish guy rolls up one day and says, "I don't think anybody can help me, but as my last desperation, I've come to you." And she said, "What's up?" And he said, "I'm just really unhappy all the time. I'm always at war inside myself, and I realize that I'm just incredibly selfish. I can't help being so selfish." And I'm lazy too. Not only am I selfish, I'm lazy. She said, "Well, I don't know. We'll find. Maybe it's self-knowledge, or maybe it's delusion. We'll find out." And she's not the sort of person who easily believed anything very much. And so she says, "Well," he said, "so I need something that's somebody who's really lazy. I need, there's a guy, English novelist called Jeff Dyer that wrote a book called Yoga for People Who Can't Be Bothered to Do It." and so he was kind of like that, I want a practice that will heal me even though I can't be bothered to do it. And she said, "Well, the thing is, I'll give you a practice and it will definitely fix your problem, but you have to do it." And he said, "Well, tell me what it is." And she said, "Nope." "No, it doesn't work like that. You agreed to do it before I tell you what it is." And he said, "Oh, I don't know, that's not fair." And she said, "I don't care." Ask me if I care if it's fair. It's a practice. It's not fair or not fair. And he said, "No, well, give me a hint." And she just laughed. And he said, "Well, I'm so desperate that I'll do anything, but you've got to tell me what it is beforehand." And she said, "Well, if you're so desperate, you'll just do it. So we got to promise beforehand. And you have to do it. You don't have to do it for the rest of your life, but you have to do it for a year." I said, "Oh, God." And so he whined and complained and wrestled around a bit. And they said, "Okay, I'll do it." And she said, "Okay, I'm going to tell you, but you have to do it. You've already promised. You've got to keep your promise." And he said, "Oh, okay." And she said, "So whatever happens, whatever anybody says to you, whatever happens to you, you say, 'Thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever.' I have no complaint, not even like a little reserved complaint in the back. I have no complaints whatsoever." And he said, "Well, tell me how to do it. And she said, I just did. Whatever happens, just, that's your practice. Thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. And he said, this will never work for me. And she said, thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. Now off you go, and I'll see you in a year. and he tries to tell her, she says, nope, off you go. And so he goes, and he goes back to his kind of miserable life. And he's just as miserable as he ever was. And he just does the same things. He drinks too much, and he doesn't treat people well, and he does all the things he does. And she says, and she doesn't even think about him. She's got her other students, and her life and things like that. So anyway, so he wanders around, and it's Japanese, so he's in Japan. He goes off to another island, but it doesn't help. Nothing kind of helps. He decides he'll go to San Francisco, but that doesn't help. And he goes back again, and then eventually a year comes around. He comes sort of kind of crestfallen to her and says, "Well, I don't know. I tried everything. I went everywhere. I even went to the United States, and I tried everything, but nothing worked." And she said, "Thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever." And at that moment, everything opened for him, and he just started laughing and weeping. "Thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever." And after that, his life changed a lot, and he was more helpful and friendly, and he didn't object to life. I suppose that's it. He didn't object to his life, so he didn't want to fit life into something he had already thought of. Thank you so let's try sitting with that a little bit together. Thank you very much. Just say that to yourself. You don't have to believe it. You can dodge it. You can go to San Francisco if you want. You can do anything. but just let it into your heart, that strange, mysterious feeling of welcoming life. Linji said, whatever occurs, take the position of host, and your place will be a true one. N. Scott Momaday was a Native American guy. He was one of the first Native American people who became well known as a writer. And this is called The Delight Song of So-I Tali. I am a feather on the bright sky. I am the blue horse that runs in the plain. I am the fish that rolls shining in the water. I am the shadow that follows a child. I am the evening light, the luster of meadows. I am an eagle playing with the wind. I am a cluster of bright beads. I am the farthest star. I am the cold of dawn. I am the roaring of the rain. I am the glitter on the crust of the snow. I am the long track of the moon in a lake. I am a flame of 4 colors. I am a flame of 4 colors. I am a deer standing away in the dusk. I am a field of sumac and the pomme blanche. I am an angle of geese in the winter sky. I am the hunger of a young wolf. I am the whole dream of these things. You see, I am alive. I am alive. I stand in good relation to the earth. I stand in good relation to the gods. I stand in good relation to all that is beautiful. I stand in good relation to the daughter of Santante. That's where the love interest comes in right at the end. I stand in good relation to the daughter of Santante. You see, I am alive. I am alive. And so that's one of the I think notions of gratitude is that notion of the joy in each moment. That there's a Christian monastic called Brother David Stendhal Rast, who kind of became famous for notions about gratitude, and his notion is always that whenever you're really present, it's really a Buddhist notion, a Zen notion. When you're really present, you feel it. You feel the beauty of life opening up in you. I am alive. I am alive. So that I think that's a Lakota thing that Scott Momaday said. And this is Osip Mandelstam, one of his late poems when he was sent out into exile before he was killed in Russia. And I was alive in the blizzard of the blossoming pear. Myself I stood in the storm of the bird cherry tree. It was all leaf life and star shower, unerring, self-shattering power. And it was all aimed at me. What is this dire delight, flowering, fleeing, always earth? What is being? What is truth? Blossoms rapture and rapture the air, all hover and hammer. Time intensified and time intolerable sweetness, raveling rot. It is now, it is not. So that's one way to come at it. The other way to come at it is in terms of noticing the transformations, and this is all, Mary Oliver has a wonderful poem called Gratitude. I'll just read a couple of lines from it. What did you notice? The dew snail, the low flying sparrow, the bat on the wind in the dark, big-chested geese in the V of sleekest performance, the soft-toed patient in the hot sand. That's a good one, the soft-toed patient in the hot sand. It's a Lewis Carroll image. The sweet, hungry ants, the uproar of mice in the empty house, the tin music in the cricket's body, the blouse of the goldenrod. And it goes on, the whole poem is basically, goes on like that. And it's a beautiful poem. What astonished you? What did you admire? What did you hear? So it's a sort of a catalogue of what she was doing on Earth, really. And then I noticed at one stage, I noticed fear. Fear became interesting to me, and I was sort of grew up in a world where people valued toughness and courage, and things like that. It was a little bit influenced by Irish forebears. Is this a private fight, or can anyone join? That sort of thing. And so courage was valued, but fear was not highly regarded. And timidity was not highly valued. And although reflection sometimes comes with that, so maybe it should have been. And I noticed I knew that when I was really meditating at a certain stage in my practice, I knew I had already opened up, but I didn't have access to it. So I knew that the light and the awakened world was already here. And somehow I knew that, I could get that. Who knows? Sometimes you understand something and you don't know why, or there's no particular reason, but I knew that because I could answer koans and things like that. I'd gone to a Korean teacher, I could answer his koans and things like that, but I knew that there was something missing, some sort of transformative joy and things like that. And I kept having, I was in a deep retreat, and I kept having this image of standing on a cliff and needing to jump off. And that was a tremendously image from my childhood. What idiot would want to have the courage to jump off a cliff? But yes, we would. But I had this feeling there was some, but it literalized itself in that way. And the metaphor came to me. And then and I was afraid to jump off, and I felt that was a terrible problem. I had to solve the problem of fear. And then at some stage I realized, oh, the thing I wasn't including was fear. And the thing, I had the thing, you can't go through the gates and leave the part you disapprove of behind. If you're greedy or um, whatever it is. Coyote does that for the Native American. Coyotes, what somebody, Lewis Hyde said, coyotes always hungry and randy. And you can't go through the gates without coyote. And coyote is always doing tricks on people and things like that. But you can't go through the gates without your shadow. And for me, the shadow was fear. And so I had to go, I'll have the fear come over me. And it was great. And then things opened up and I was full of joy and love. And so I wrote something, and I think that's what the Tantra is really about, where you have an overwhelming emotion and like rage, for example, that turns into clarity when you enter it rather than squashing it. So that's a very Zen thing. And so this is a tantric ode to fear. Ladybird, ladybird, fly away home, your house is on fire, your children are gone. A kid's rhyme from my childhood. Dear fear, in your company I hear my house is burning, but when it does, it turns out I'm not imprisoned by the beautiful paintings. Fear, you are like the shirt of Nessus that Hercules put on, and it burned and burned until he died and became a star. It is a poison that nothing takes off me. This shirt is inside my skin. On my shoulders and my neck I smell nothing, but the smell of that nothing is poison. Many flavors, many colors, gratitude and hope, desire and death, clawing onward to the next moment, which somehow has not yet arrived. Fear, perhaps this is how you create time. When I stumble towards you, you aren't anything. There's nothing ahead or behind. You are like snow that is so exciting in its nothingness. You look like the edge of a sword. The pale width of the moment continues anyway. There is no flaw in it, and it lasts forever. So, I don't know when I wrote that, but I found it on my hard drive. It popped up somehow. I thought, sounds like something I wrote, So, but the idea is that you enter the thing, if you're tormented by something, you can't exclude it, it will appear, the vastness will appear inside that. And it's the same with sorrow, or grief, or whatever. Grief is famous for that, but fear too, or anger, or whatever, desire. And I want to, another thing here. So there's I suppose that's a technical meditation aspect of things where if something's coming up, you don't refuse it. But it's the same in your life. If you have a kid who's causing trouble, you don't refuse, it's your trouble. You can't manipulate the kid into not causing trouble. Maybe you can, but you can't really. Sooner or later, the trouble will get to you because it's your trouble and it's your shadow appearing, things like that. So you can't manipulate your partner into behaving the way you want your partner to. The reason you chose your partner was because they don't behave the way you want them to, and things like that. So it's more like it's a kind of fulfillment. Is something is waiting to fulfill itself in us, and some beauty in some place we hadn't thought, like that. So I wanted to call on Alison Atwell was talking to me about gratitude, and she said for her it comes up with ancestors and things like that. And are you up for saying something about that? It was sort of interesting to me, and since it was her thought, I thought rather than just stealing it the way I might usually, I thought I'd let her say it. Yeah.
Well, I've been waking up very early before dawn for about a week. because I was on the East Coast in Boston for about 5 days, and my body had just reestablished itself in the East Coast, and then I'm back on the West Coast. And dawn is really, I think, my favorite time of day. I just love I don't know, the world is not yet appeared, and to watch, it's like the original appearance of the universe. So, John asked me a couple days ago, well, what do you think of gratitude? And that just the word or the experience of gratitude has been sifting through my consciousness. It's almost like a leaf that's been floating back and forth through time and through memory and through experience of the moments when I've felt. It's a spontaneous arrival of a feeling that is not something I've manufactured or gone out to grab with some 10-point plan. But um, this morning I was watching the dawn, and there seemed to be a quality in gratitude that it's where it has an aspect of assuaging loneliness, a kind of loneliness that is part of what I came to Zen to, and I think what everyone comes to Zen to, um, to somehow resolve of not being alone in the universe. And I guess Kensho is an expression or experience of fully entering into not a particle of myself or my life is separate from or held outside of this infinite appearance of the stars and the earth and the universe. So when I felt gratitude, it's been times, it can be in a small way where I'll hear the sound of a bird call, and then it like pierces directly into my heart, where it's one point in the universe. It's like that Indra's net. One jewel flashes a bit of the light that goes directly into my heart, and I feel the whole of the universe. It's almost like a silvery lifeline that's thrown out. And at times in my life, like when I first came to Zen, I think I was thinking about, you know, at times feeling like I had fallen into a terrible crevasse, and I was at the bottom of it in this black, dark place, and no one and nothing could reach me. And then I'd listen to a talk, or I'd hear or I'd read a poem, or I'd see a piece of, of art, and it's like some bit of light flashed into the crevasse where I was, or someone threw that silvery lifeline down, and I could, grab it for a moment. And I knew that there was a way back in, that I wasn't alone in the world. So I think gratitude, that's one of that feeling of someone or something in the universe has flashed the bit of light, and I received it. And then the bit about the ancestors, which you had just mentioned, is that, you know, at at times too, either when I was first found Zen, or when I've been teaching and I have either lost my way or found my way, but just the feeling that I wasn't walking this path alone. I wasn't trailblazing and cutting with a machete, making my way, that the ancestors had walked this path, and that every step was worn, and there was a path available, and the feeling of that's a bit of the light flashing back as well.
Thank you. The ancestors, yeah. And that's something I find astonishing sometimes. The ancestors gave us these, presents sort of wrapped. The koans are these wrapped presents, and there's something delightful about them, and amazing that they would have thought to hand these down. Yeah, like Angela, do you have anything you want to say? In the deep south, where it's actually warm now, but not yet dawn.
Really, just a field report. It's been raining here, which is just something that I always feel great gratitude for, especially at this time of year when the fires are always a possibility. So it's been days of soft easterly rain in off the Tasman Sea, and just a feeling of walking in it as a blessing. So that's all. Thanks.
Very good. Field reports. Tess Beasley, you have anything to say?
Yeah, a few things maybe. Like that flash of light image this morning. We had some friends with us who have a 6-month-old baby, and both in what you were saying, John, in the poem about everything is alive, just watching this little creature, and right now anything that crinkles just brings her the most delight on the entire planet. And so any like bag, anything that crinkles, she just starts to break into a grin. And you think, oh, it's that easy. And her, she was dead asleep, and she starts to sleep, and her dad, to get her go back to sleep, just rubs his nose on her forehead, and she just turns back in and goes to sleep. But the thing I was thinking about with gratitude is just watching, these two young people completely overwhelmed with this little consciousness, and just thinking, all the parents who have put themselves through this. They're exhausted, and they're, you can tell they had, as almost anyone does, absolutely no idea what they were getting themselves into, and the demand and the love and the just a kind of sacrifice of consciousness, their own being and consciousness, to just, lift and move and suck and, and just how that in its way, as you were talking about, gets passed along, that feeling. And the other side of that, when you were talking about not refusing anything, we had over the weekend, my partner's whole family, but a very different demanding creature, which was my mother-in-law's 89-year-old sister, and who's about to, returning to infant colors and states and movements in her own way, but was just incredibly demanding and picking fights with everyone. And just, she walks into a room and she's little and she stands up really tall and she just makes these blanket statements that you can tell are meant to just kind of get people on edge. And I was watching how, like the koan, it's so easy. It was so easy for everyone to try to make that a problem. She's ruining everything. And can you believe she said this? And who has to take her back tonight? And, it becomes this whole thing. And then I watched my brother-in-law, for some reason, he's a Russian Polish guy, maybe because he grew up on the other side of the wall during communism or something, but he doesn't find her to be a problem. And so he just stands with her and he chats and he kind of makes jokes, and she only gets about half of them and tries to pick fights with the other half. And he just thinks that's fine. And the more that he kind of, almost in a way, thank you very much, I have no complaints whatsoever. She would just relax. And the more we would just kind of she picks a fight, it's fine. If she goes to nap, it's fine. If she demands something, it's fine. We didn't have to not include whatever would come up in us, but we also didn't have to try to solve her or assuage her or anything. And eventually it becomes a bit like the baby, where you just think, well, I don't know, right now crinkling is interesting, or right now, Israel is interesting, or right now, whatever it is, and just let it roll. And so I think that, what you said, practice as an invitation to just not refusing whatever it is, just opens everything wide. So that's it, I think.
Well, thank you very much. This is a poem I wrote this time of year, a couple of years ago. A cold night, as the day left and the sheep grazing nearby in the shadow grew invisible, I kept reaching and picking olives till I was doing it by feel. Picking olives in the moonlight, the birds up late too, black against the sinking light. Meditation's a big thank you very much for me, I think all thank you very much has filled the universe, but I'm particularly glad of meditation. No matter what's going on, if we put ourselves there, everything transforms. And it's nice to know, nice to have. John Joseph, do you have any final words?
You mentioned picking olives in the moonlight, and just before this call, I put on a shirt to look proper because I've been picking olives in the morning. And after this call ends, I'll be going out and picking olives, and we'll mill them, and then we'll press them, and we'll get out of 300 pounds of olives, we'll get a couple of gallons of oil. And I was thinking about how much I love olives. I love the leaves, and I love the feel and look of their leaves, and I love the olives itself and the meat of the olive, and we salt them and the oil, and it kind of comes back to, for me, like, where does this joy come from? And it's kind of what you're reading, John, is that we don't really have to know where the joy comes from to just participate in it, to just appreciate it. So that's what I was thinking.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Olives.